Hi everyone, it's Allison and I'm back with another project. Today we're going to do a pop art project inspired by Andy Warhol. Now pop art is all about the idea that you can do the same image over and over with slight variations and see what happens. It's a lot of fun. There's also a lot of fun commentary about what is art. Can you just make pictures of things like bananas and Campbell's soup cans? You totally can. That's still art and it's still fun. So all the pieces that you see here are silk screens. Now, silk screening is kind of like having a lot of stencils made of fabric. You've got a piece of cloth and there is everything blocked out except one little area. So for instance, with banana, there is a screen that has an open space for the yellow ink. So you would put that down on the paper and you would, there's this fun squeegee that you use and you squish the ink through the fabric and it makes the yellow area. Then you have another screen that's got everything covered except holes where you want the black ink to go. And you would do the squeegee again and you end up with the banana. Now, it's kind of hard to do silk screen at home, but I thought it would be fun to do it with cardboard stamps, or if you don't have paint at home, I'm going to show you a way to do it with stencils. And we are going to use some cut paper to get the different colors so that you don't have to do the stamp over and over and over again. Now you can do that if you want to. There are lots of tutorials out there for how to do you would want to look for a multi-block woodcut. That would give you the basic idea for how to make that kind of print. But we're going to do a very simple version of Flower 73 over here. Just in case you want to know how many versions of some of these there are, that's Flower 73. But here are my versions. So I did one kind because with the negative space. Now that's where we're going to do printing with the parts that are not the color. They're not the main idea, which would be our positive space. So we're going to go around those and we're going to do all the places we don't want to be colored. So we're going to do this one. This one is more like Flower 73, but you can do anything with a cardboard stamp or a stencil. So I also did this version. The stamp looks like this. And then the stencil looks similar. But so you don't have to do what I do. You can do pretty much anything that you can cut out of cardboard. Here's the stamp for this one. Honestly, just have a good time. Now, be careful. Much like you can get a paper cut, you can get a cardboard cut, and they hurt. So, our younger artists, please ask for grown-up help with the cardboard cutting part. And for our older artists, please exercise caution because trust me, cardboard cuts are not fun. But it's a great way to recycle all the boxes we have laying around right now. So to get started, we're gonna have to make our grid. We're gonna need some colored paper, we're gonna need some plain paper, some cardboard, a pencil, scissors. If you have it, black paint. If not, crayons or markers or colored pencils. Totally do you. We'll do the stencil part with that first, and I'll do two sections of my example. Obviously, if you want to do just the stencils, just do that part with me and do all four of your sections. If you want to do the stamps, skip that part and just skip ahead to the stamping part. We'll do that part instead, and then you can do all four of yours that way. That way you can learn what you're doing and then go have fun. So, first thing we got to do is get our grid made with paper. So I grabbed 8 colors of construction paper. Let me move these out of the way. And I cut one to be a big square, so I had something to attach everything else to. Oops, sorry. Things are trying to slide into the frame again. So we're going to want to glue these. Let me get a piece of paper so that I don't get glue everywhere. So we're going to glue these squares onto my big square. Now you don't have to use a square. It was just making my life easier to use squares because I was using some leftover paper from another project. But you can use a whole piece of paper if you want. Just cut it into 4 equal pieces and make sure that you have one piece to glue everything onto and then an equal piece of each of your other colors. All right, just make sure to squish that down real good. The corners always need more glue. Have you ever noticed that? Frustrating. Frustrating. So we're gonna get this so it can dry first. Got that part. And I need my blue. And, oops, I just don't want to line up. There we go. Now another thing you can do is have if you're just working with leftover pieces of paper, you can have a piece of paper that you just glue all your pieces to. That works too, just like a background piece. That one doesn't even have to have color, it can just be white. I have one of those ready to go, but it's for the very end. I find it easier to do some of these parts with no backing on this. All right, so we've got our grid made. Got some fun colors hanging out, and we're gonna, oop, that corner's coming up too. It's always the corners. All right, we're gonna let this dry while we get our stencil made. So, and you wanna do this no matter which version you're doing, you're gonna wanna make yourself a little starter stencil. So I decided I wanted to do something like Flower 73, so I made myself a flower, and I decided I wanted it to go down in this corner. So take a piece of paper that's about the same size, it's better if it is the same size, as one of your grid pieces, and draw whatever you want your big shape to be on it. Not any detailed shapes, just a big shape. In my case, I did a flower. You could do a banana. You could do a can. You could do a portrait of a friend, whatever you want to do. Now, you're going to want to, my scissors, I put them away. Whoops. There we go. That's what I got for absent-mindedly putting them away. All right, so now we want this part of our paper to stay uncut. So we're gonna gently, again, younger artists, you might wanna ask an adult to help you with this, but you're gonna poke in and we're gonna get rid of the flower part. So I always find it easier to cut all the way out and then go in. So this is gonna be like our silkscreen mask. When you're doing a silk screen, you actually, it's really cool. You coat the screen with this neat chemical, and then you cover up the parts that you want to stay useful with a mask. And you put a really bright light on it, and it cooks the chemical onto the screen, and it makes it crunchy. And then you wash it, and the places where you want the ink to go through, the goo will wash away. Then you can push ink through the fabric in those places to make your marks. You can see why I'm not having you do this at home. It requires some special equipment. It's really fun though. If you get the opportunity to do it, it is really cool. You can make, that's how people make t-shirts and bags and stuff. It's pretty neat. You can do the same thing over and over and over with it. It's pretty cool. Okay, so we've got our little layout mask here. This is going to help us put things in the right place over and over and over. So we've got our little friend right here, and this is going to help us first cut out our color flowers. Now I've picked some colors that I know will look fun with the colors I started with, and I'm just going to trace my flower onto here, and I'm literally just going around the edges with a pencil. This is called a stencil. Now in a minute we're going to do a different kind of stencil, but this will be good practice. This is why I said you had to do this part even if you're doing your stamping, because this makes it really easy to get all of your flowers looking the same. Now, one of the things that's hard about silk screening is what's called registration. This is also a thing that's hard with a lot of printmaking, like block prints. Getting multiple colors to line up on top of each other just right is really hard. So sometimes it's a little bit off. And so in a lot of Andy Warhol's work and a lot of other pop art and a lot of other print work, you will see that maybe the yellow isn't quite in the right place, or the black lines that are supposed to go around something cover up the color a little bit in a way they're probably not supposed to. But that's what makes it fun. All right, so I'm gonna put this to the side and we're gonna cut these out and glue them where they need to go. Now, what you can use your stencil for is to help you put your flowers in exactly the right spot. Now, if you don't want them to be in exactly the right spot so that you get a little more variation, so that the other parts of the black parts of our stencil or our stamp definitely don't go where they're supposed to. If you want to get that look, don't use your stencil to help you put the flowers in the right place. You can glue them kind of where they're supposed to go, or just somewhere else. If you look at different versions of Andy Warhol's flowers, some of them ended up very much where they're supposed to go, and some of them really did not. Some of them really didn't. All right, so we're gonna glue this. I'm gonna do one of these where it's supposed to go. Oh, I gotta figure out which way it goes. I think it's this way. Yep, there we go. So I'm gonna glue one of these the way it's supposed to go, and I'm gonna do the other ones a little bit wrong, just because it's more fun that way. Now, if you want to make sure that you don't have any pencil lines, you can cut a little bit inside and make your flowers a little bit smaller. Or you can actually flip, I wrote flip on here to remind me to tell you this. You can flip your stencil over so that your pencil lines go on the backs of your flowers. That way you don't have to look at them later, if that bothers you. Sometimes I don't care, and sometimes I'm like, I can see pencil, why? All right, so now we've got our yellow one. Got my handy dandy glue catcher here. All right, so I'm gonna figure out about where this one's supposed to go. So it should go this way right here. But I'm gonna turn it wrong. So the wrong petals are in the wrong place, because that'll look more fun. Squish! So I just squished down the glue in the middle, and now I can squish down the whole thing. Once I've got my stencil out of the way. Oh, I need a little more glue right there. All right, ooh, a couple places. I guess I let it dry a little too much before I stuck it down. That's okay, it's a thing we can do. All right, now we're gonna get the next one. I think I wanted pink with, yes, I was doing pink with orange because it looks cool. Blue with orange also looks cool. But the pink with the green wasn't as much fun. This is actually the third time I've done this project, because I did it once as well in my experimenting to figure out the project to show all of you. So when I was figuring out my examples, that was one time. Then I got most of the way into a project and I spilled black paint all over it. And immediately after that, a neighbor started doing lawn work. So it was very loud and I couldn't finish that video. So I had to start over. It was very entertaining, though only in hindsight. All right, so we're gonna line this one up, and I think I'm gonna do this one wrong too, just because I can. Ha 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 ha. I like to live on the wild side. Here we go. Just gonna squish that down. And last one. said, you don't have to do flowers. I just thought that this was a very simple shape to cut out of things. So you can pretty much do anything you want. Honestly, if you want to, you don't have to cut out exact shapes for your colors. You could cut out abstract blobs for this part and glue them wherever you want in your grid and then do your stamp. That could look really fun too. It's art. There's no way to do it wrong. All right. Let's get some glue on this. Ooh. My glue stick's getting low. How low can it go? Got enough for this flower though. Da, da, da. All right, that's kind of where that needs to go. It'll look good. Okay, so we've got all our flowers glued down. While those are drying, we are gonna make, first, we're gonna make a stencil for doing pop art with colored pencils or markers or crayons. So if this is not the part you want to do, you can totally skip ahead to where you see me touching cardboard because this part will not be what you want to do. Or if you just want to see how this part works and then make your choice later, that works too. So we're going to slide this over here. So we've got our original stencil. We want to take another piece of paper that is, oh, my things, they slid. Sometimes they do that. So you're going to want to take another piece of paper that's also the same size as one of your blocks, and you are going to want to trace your flower on there. Then I want you to draw some leaves, some grass stems, other flowers, whatever you want it to be. But everything you make, all the shapes, have to touch this flower. And the reason is we're going to be making a stencil that looks kind of like this, because we're blocking off all the areas that we don't want to put black on. We're kind of doing the reverse of an actual silk screen. So to make this stay all one piece, you gotta just have things sticking off the flower. If I had another grass stem right here, it would just be all lonely by itself and we wouldn't have a way to use it for a stencil. If you've ever stenciled letters, that's why you always see a little tiny bar holding on the inside of the O. You gotta have something holding on that part or the stencil doesn't work. So just to keep things from being annoying for us, we are not going to deal with that. So I am going to draw some stems. So let's see. Let's have one that goes off the page right here. And one that goes off the page right here. Then how about one here, and here, and here. Gonna do one right here. A really tall one right here. See, now I have to make it, I can't put anything over in this corner if it doesn't touch the flower. So these grass stems, I have to change this one, and everything over here has to touch this grass stem, which is fine. You just have to change it a little bit. And I'm actually going to make, no, I'm going to leave that the way it is. But I am going to change these so that that one, so see how this one is touching this one? That's okay. It'll hold on and just kind of dangle in the corner. You'll see what I mean in a minute. All right, so we're going to cut off the pieces that we don't want. If it helps you, kind of scribble in the areas that you don't want. So that's everything that isn't the flower and isn't your plant stems. It also can only be the pieces that touch the outside. So see how I have a little piece right here? That's not going to work. That one will just have to go away, and that's okay. Okay, and see, like this one right here, I don't want to deal with that. We won't worry about that one. I'm going to get rid of this one though. Dun, 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 dun. So now you can see all the places that I'm going to cut off. It's a little complicated, I know. But the other way to do this kind of stencil is to have a square like this and to leave a border around the outside and only cut out the parts you want to make marks in the middle. And that part's a little hard and you have to use a craft knife or cut really carefully. And I thought that might be annoying. So we're going to do this version today. There's lots of ways to do everything. There's no one right answer. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of that part. Ta-da! And now it doesn't matter what I do with my cutting, anywhere that I colored with pencil. So I can be really sloppy and just take out chunks if I want to. This is important. It makes your life much easier. All right. And it's okay if you don't get the lines just right. Just cut where you want to. It's really more like guidelines anyway. All right. Gotta make sure we do our flower part here. Dun, da, da. Dun, da, da. All right, got rid of that part. See how our stems are coming along? It's really fun. Gonna make lots of little bits. If you have pets, your pets are probably gonna be very excited about small bits of paper everywhere. Mine were over the moon. All right, so almost done here. Just gotta get this down. Ta-da! All right, so we've got our flower with our grass stems. So you can see we're going to be coloring around this to do black in these areas. Let me get this out of the way. And I'm going to do 2 of my grid pieces with crayon so that you can see how this process works. And then we're going to skip ahead and do the cardboard stamp part with paint. If you have paint available, you can try that. But I wanted you to see how both of these work so that you can have fun. So you're literally going to just, if you want to, you can trace around the edges, or you can start on top of your stencil and just kind of brush off of it onto your colored paper. Now make sure to try not to get too much of your marker or your crayon or whatever onto the other colors. You're gonna get a little bit, that's okay. Now you're gonna see that this is the one where I put the flower in exactly the right place. So the stems pretty much are going where they're supposed to. There's a little piece of flower peeking out here and here, but for the most part, everything that's supposed to be covered and not end up with quote unquote ink on it is where it's supposed to be. So if we were doing a silkscreen with this one, this would be great registration. Everything's lined up. But some of the fun of doing silkscreen or pop art is not having it come out quite right. It's a little off. That part's really fun. Now, if you have access to a computer and a photo editing program, you can actually, there's lots of tutorials online for how to do pop art portraits with a digital picture and some editing, and it's really fun. And you can actually do versions where you get to color parts of it. You print off what you've made for the black and white part, and then you color it however you want. Or there's versions where you select areas to be colored and then change the colors over and over and see what happens. Both of those are really fun. If you have access to those things, try that version. It's great. All right, so we've got one of those. Ta-da! So we've got one version of that, and now I'm gonna go do this one. Now this one is, I actually pretty much got it in the right place too. So this one's gonna be pretty tidy. So we're just gonna go over, and I'm gonna tip this so you can see what I'm doing. Just realized my arm was covering the entire picture. That's kind of silly, right? I also think my cats might have been messing with my camera. It's further up the table than it usually is. They like to rub their faces on it when they think I'm not paying enough attention. Or when they think it's dinner time, and it's not dinner time. All right. Try and keep this just on the orange as much as I can. Whoops. Like I said, it's okay if it's not that tidy. It don't have to be perfect. Variation is fun. Happy accidents. All right, get this part down here. And get this part over here in the corner. So if you're doing a stencil version, you'll just keep doing this on all of your sections until you have all of your ink parts colored in, and then you can see what you've got. Now, like if I were going to do, oh, see? So this petal wasn't in the same place, so this is bigger, and there's an echo of what should be a flower up here and right here, and the pink flower is not exactly lined up, and that's lots of fun. So if I wanted to keep going, I would go put this here and do it, and you see that this yellow flower doesn't quite line up, and that's fun. And then I would go over here and do it, and actually the blue flower seems like it lines up pretty good. But we're gonna go ahead and do, we're gonna do the stamp version. So you can see what that will look like. Now, you do have to reverse everything for a stamp. If you just go ahead and do the stamp, make sure that you start with this so if you've started with this to put your flowers in the right place, for everything for the stamp, you want to take this and turn it over. That way you won't end up, otherwise you would end up with all of the grass. Instead of going this way, it would go this way and the flower pattern would be right here. Or maybe that's what you want it to look like. That would be pretty cool. But just so you know, everything's gonna be backwards when we do the stamp. So let me put my crayon away, and we're gonna get out some cardboard. Now this is just a recycled box from some deliveries I got. And I need one piece to be the back of my stamp. You gotta have something to glue all your pieces onto. And then you need a piece to be the pieces of your stamp. So you need 2 of whatever size you're working with. And to get them the right size, we are gonna use our good friend again. We are gonna trace around this. Oh, this side is a little crunched, so let me get this side, because I want to have a good support for my stamp. Now if you are, note that I flipped it over, if you are drawing your stamp from scratch, you can just draw straight on your cardboard once you do this, and cut off the pieces that you want to use and discard the rest. Make sure to put it in recycling, because corrugated cardboard does recycle. So I've got the square for mine, and I've got the flower. This will help me glue things in the right place. But more importantly, I'm going to do another one of these. Doot, doot, doot. I think I cut off most of that part. I do, so that'll work. So you're going to want to cut another one of these. Got to make sure we get it the right size. That'll help us figure out where things go. We've got our flower. So this one, we're actually going to basically find all the parts we want, which are the opposite of the parts we wanted this time. This time we wanted to use our stencil to block the areas we didn't want crayon on. This time we're going to take these pieces that we got rid of last time, and we're going to keep those and glue them on so that they make a raised stamp and we can print with those. All right, so to make my life easier, I'm going to just take my stencil that I used before and flip it over and trace it, because that'll just be a little faster. But if you did not do this part, you can just do what we did earlier, drawing some stems. Now, in this case, you don't have to have it all be one chunk. If you wanted to, you could literally just cut this into strips, leave some out, cut off the parts that, the only thing you have to do, make sure to do is cut off the parts that involve the flower, because you don't want those to print or you'll cover up the color. But if you wanted to just cut this into pieces and make sure you get rid of all the flower parts, you can totally do that. I'm going to stick with the same one so that it matches the thing I made before. So the parts I want to get rid of this time are, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put an X on all the pieces I want to keep. So I want a piece, that piece, this piece, this piece, this one, and technically that's part of that, but I'll put a little X right there in case it pops off. Sometimes when you're cutting, things don't cooperate. All right, so we are going to cut this part out. Again, be careful with this part. You can cut it with any scissors. Younger scissors, grown-up scissors, cardboard. And, oh, by the way, this is single wall cardboard. Do not go for the double. That stuff's really hard to cut. But if you do have a craft knife or a box cutter and can use one safely, that's another option. It's a little easier to cut cardboard with that. You can see I have to kind of flip this around to come from the other side. Okay, so I've got my box. I want things to go all the way to the edge, so I have to make sure I have the right size square. And now I'm going to make sure that I get all my pieces with an X cut off in one chunk. Anything that doesn't have an X, I can cut into that and make a big mess, and it does not matter. So I'm going to cut off this part first and just work on getting this section nicely cut. Ooh. See, my scissors didn't want to go in that way. This is where having a craft knife would be really helpful, but I wanted to show you that you can do it with scissors. All right, so get that one out, make this one easier to cut. And it's okay if your cardboard bends a little bit, it won't show up. And if it does, it's just fun texture. All right, so I've got one of my needed chunks and in one piece. And to show you what's going to happen with that, I got to cut this one out. This is my backer. This is going to kind of be like a puzzle on our backer. The having your flower drawn on your backer is kind of like using the picture on the puzzle box to help you figure out where things go. Get that last edge cut off. Got a little pile for recycling over here of all my little box scraps. I have a lot of boxes hanging around right now with all the deliveries we've been getting. All right, so this is gonna be this part, and we'll glue that down in just a minute, but I'm gonna get all my other pieces cut out first. So let's get this part at the bottom. So see, I can just cut straight through the flowers, straight through this other part. I don't need those pieces, so I can just cut off the pieces I don't need. I only want the part with the X. Like I said, if you are free-forming this, you can just cut your square in chunks and just make sure you cut off the part that has a flower. That's all you gotta do. All right, so I got that piece, and that'll go right there. Go to the recycling pile, my friends. Now I need this part. Now it's gonna be kind of hard to get one of those stem pieces out, so we'll go this way. Sometimes the scissors tell you which way they want to go with cardboard. Now you can do this with a lot of different surfaces. If you have some fun foam, like craft foam that you make fun things out of, you can actually use that to make stamps too. Washable markers work okay on those if you're stamping, but paint still works better. There's the good old potato stamps. Those come out fun, but they're a little sticky because they're starchy. And then you can make little block prints out of pink erasers or the white plastic erasers. But those are kind of small, and you do need a special tool for those so to do it safely. So this is just an easier way to do it with stuff you have in the house. And you can make these as big as you want. I went pretty small. You could make a stamp out of a whole chunk of box if you want to. All right. All right, I need that whole piece, so I'm going to chop this part out. Move that over. I want this whole corner right here. Cut out these grass pieces. Just chop them right off. Remember, like I said, you can get a cardboard cut and they really hurt, so be careful. I had a job where we opened lots of boxes and we got cardboard cuts a lot and it did not feel good. All right, and then I am gonna cut this last piece out and then we'll be ready to put our stamp together. Come on. Trying really hard not to cut all the way through just so I don't end up with two separate pieces. It wouldn't be the end of the world if I did. I can just glue them back on the backer, but it's just easier when they're attached to each other. All right, so this part's gonna go like right here. Ta-da! Now we can glue our stamp together. You know what? My glue stick's looking a little sorry. Let me duck down under the table here and get another one. Where'd my little ones go? Well, I got a big one this time. All right, so we're gonna glue our stamp together now. And you can see what I mean about it being backwards. All right. So we're just gonna put lots of glue on the backs of these. It doesn't have to be glued down as nicely as when you did your paper parts. If it's a little flappy, that's okay. Really, you just want it to be sturdy enough that it doesn't come apart while you're stamping. That's all you want. So if a couple pieces are not stuck so great, but a couple places are stuck really good, that's okay. So just give it a good squish. Oh, I moved all my pieces. That's okay. I can figure out where they go. Give it a good squish. Glue down the next one. Ta-da! Should probably move that. All right, So I'm going to line that one up where it goes. Give it a good squish. Right, so you can see the shadows where this is sticking up. So we are surrounding our flower with exciting stamping areas. Now, if you wanted to, you could also put a little piece in the middle of your flower to make a mark in the middle. In fact, I think I'll make one of those. We can go back and draw it in on our other ones. Ta-da! Okay, kind of line that up with the corner. And it's okay if you don't get it perfect. Like I said, it's fun when the registration's not quite right. It's fun when things don't line up exactly. All right, get this piece. This goes right here, I think. Does that piece go? Let me find out. Oh, that's about right. It's usually pretty easy to figure out where things go. If not, though, you can use a stencil or your drawing from earlier to figure it out. And if you're just gluing things together, well, that doesn't matter at all. In fact, if you wanted to just have a good time, you can just cut up a bunch of pieces of cardboard and glue them into a stamp and see what happens. Just make a bunch of fun shapes. That's always a good time. All right, so we're gonna do this big piece over on the side. Squish that down. Now, because cardboard is corrugated, it has a layer in the middle that's got a little wave. Some of your pieces might not stick up very far. Like I didn't end up with a good support in here. So this part's probably not gonna print very well. That's okay. You can squish the stamp and squish your paper to make sure the paint sticks better. All right, we're gonna let that dry for just a second. Make sure it's good and sturdy. Dun, dun, dun. Get some things out of the way. And I'm gonna get my paint ready. Now just a little bit of acrylic paint. This is a lid to the mustard jar. You're gonna need a little bit of paint and a little bit of water. I'm just gonna squirt some from there. And you can either like smear this in a paper plate and dunk your stamp into it, or, you actually can't see that very well, can you? There we go. Or you can just paint it on with a paintbrush. And I'm gonna paint it on with a paintbrush because that makes things a little more easy to control. You do wanna put a little water with your paint because that'll keep it wet longer. Acrylic paint especially dries really fast, and sometimes you're not done putting it on your stamp before you need to stamp it, or it won't do. So a little water will keep things nice and wet while you're working. Let me move my paint. It's casting a big old shadow on my video. All right, so you're just gonna paint the parts, and it doesn't matter if you get some paint in the places you don't want it to print. They're not gonna touch the paper. That's the whole joy of a stamp. And a stamp is like the simplest of block prints. So if you want to learn more about block printing, the internet has many, many, many fine examples. All right. Trying not to stick my finger directly in it, even though it won't hurt anything if I do. All right, so you want to make sure that your paint still looks really shiny while you're doing this. So if you need to paint an area more than once while you're working, go ahead. And this is where it's sometimes easier to just put a big blob of paint on a plate and dunk your stamp in it. Also, the first time you use your cardboard stamp, it's gonna soak up a lot of paint because it's paper and it's drinking up all that lovely water and paint. But the next time, the acrylic will have dried, and then basically your stamp is plastic, so it won't slurp up as much anymore. All right, so we've got nice wet paint everywhere. I've made sure everything's still nice and shiny. All right, so we're gonna flip this over. Try to line it up with the corners. This is why it's nice to have your stamp the same size as one of your blocks. and we're going to squish it. Make sure to squish in all the areas. And if you're really, especially in the middle, give it a good squish. And one of my sides is a little weird, so I'm going to make sure to squish my edges. And if you're really brave, you can try to pick up the whole thing and flip it over. Oop, got a little pain on my finger, so that's okay. And you can squish more, and you can actually feel the stamp. I think you can see when I'm pushing, the paper is bending because I'm pushing places where the stamp isn't. Just to make sure everything sticks really good. We're gonna flip it over. It's probably really stuck now. See, it's really attached. So I want you to gently peel it off. Ta-da! That didn't print so good. This part must have been a little too dry, but it looks pretty neat. So let's do the green block next and see how that one comes out. And if you want to do it again, you can. I actually might. We'll print that again in a minute when it dries a little bit. Let's do the green one first. It's probably just because this was a fresh stamp and the cardboard's really thirsty. It is soaking up all the paint. All right, let's try this again. So we'll come back to the yellow. Now the thing about doing a stamp again is it's kind of hard to get it in exactly the right place. So be ready for your stamp to be slightly off and you get a double of whatever you've done. It actually looks really cool. It kind of looks like if you layered two pictures on top of each other, or in the old days you could accidentally take a picture twice on film and it looked like each picture was a ghost on top of the other. Looks kind of like that. It's really neat. All right, so we're going to try this on the green square. See if I can get that pretty lined up. I'm a little crooked, but that's all right. All right, so we're going to give it a good squish. I'm going to squish, since this part didn't print very well on the yellow, I'm going to squish really good on that part this time, since I didn't get enough printing last time. So really, really, really squish it. I'm going to flip it over, and we're going to gently rub. Now, if you want to, you can take the back of a spoon, like the curved part, and rub it on the paper. That can help you smooth the paint onto, or ink, if you will, onto the paper and make sure it gets really nicely squished on there. But just rubbing it gently with your fingers works really good too. I'm literally just squishing it. Ta-da! Okay, that should be really good. Let's see how it did. Gently. Oh, that printed much better. Oh yeah, look at that. That came out so much better. Let's do the yellow one again and see how our double print comes out. Like I said, stamps are fun. Now, some of what you're gonna get is a little bit of places where the stamp goes across, or even your stencil goes across from one piece of paper that you glued to another piece of paper that you glued. Because one of the papers is taller than the other, you're probably going to end up with a gap in your ink or your crayon or whatever you're using. That's okay. It's supposed to do that. It's kind of like a drop in the sidewalk. Roller skate over it and you hear ka-clunk. All right, gonna get this. See, now it's not soaking up nearly as fast because the cardboard's gotten to soak up a lot of paint and it can't drink anymore. It's full. Now I can print to my heart's content with it. Ha ha ha. All right. So now, oh, try not to stick your finger in the wet stuff. You'll end up with printing everywhere. All right, I'm gonna try and line that back up. But if it ends up double printed weirdly, that is okay. We're just gonna give it a good smooth. Give it a good squish. Really more concerned about this right side of it, because that's where it didn't print real good before. And I could have just left it the way it was, but I wanted to see if I could make it a little better. All right. That's pretty on there. Ta-da! All right. Peel it off. Oh, much better. Oops! And see how part of my stamp came off? I would want to glue that back down if I was going to keep going. That's a thing that happens sometimes, but that's okay. So now I've got my repeated pop art picture, and once it's dry, I am going to glue another piece of paper on the back of it, just so it has like a nice little frame to pop it out, and then it will be done. So thank you for joining me for my cardboard pop art stamp project and stencil project if you don't have paint available. I would love to see what you make with this project. So please go to Marietta Cobb artmuseum.org and hit us up on Instagram or Facebook and show me what you made. Again, my name is Allison, and I'll be back soon with another fun project. Thank you all again. Make fun things and stay safe.